52 executives watched Gabriel Silva destroy a woman in public. They had no idea they were about to choose sides. Manda Boland stepped off the elevator at 9 in the morning, leather portfolio tucked under her arm, confidence in every stride. The executive floor smelled like expensive coffee and power. She'd been called to the main boardroom for what the email said was a quarterly review of overseas operations. Nothing unusual. She'd done these presentations dozens of times. But when the double doors opened, her stomach dropped. Every seat was filled. Every executive who mattered at Silva International sat around that massive table. Department heads, division leaders, the people who actually ran the company. This wasn't a review. This was a stage, and she was about to become the performance. Gabriel Silva occupied the head of the table like a king on a throne. Silver hair, perfectly styled navy suit that cost more than most people earned in months, eyes cold as a winter lake. He didn't stand when she entered, didn't acknowledge her with anything except a slight nod toward an empty chair positioned directly in his line of fire. "Mrs. Silva, sit down." Her husband stood beside his father's chair like a soldier awaiting orders. Andrew Silva wore his trademark expression, blank, controlled, giving nothing away. But Manda had been married to him long enough to read the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw was set just slightly too tight, the almost imperceptible smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. Something was very wrong. She sat, placed her portfolio on the table with deliberate calm, folded her hands and waited, refusing to show the anxiety crawling up her spine. Gabriel let the silence stretch. 52 people watching the air, thick with anticipation and something darker, the energy of witnesses to an execution. "This won't take long," Gabriel finally said, his voice carrying that particular tone wealthy men use when they've already made their decision and don't care what anyone else thinks. "After careful consideration and extensive review of your performance and conduct, Silva International is terminating your employment, effective immediately." The words hit like a physical blow. Manda's breath caught, but she kept her face neutral. Years of dealing with difficult negotiations across 4 continents had taught her never to show weakness in rooms full of predators. On what grounds? Gabriel smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Never did. "Failure to meet our standards. Conduct unbecoming of someone representing this family, inability to adapt to our corporate culture. Take your pick. We have documentation supporting all of the above." He slid a manila folder across the polished mahogany surface. It stopped directly in front of her, damning and final. "Divorce papers. My attorneys filed this morning. You'll sign them now, in front of witnesses, so there's no confusion about how this ends or what you're entitled to, which is nothing." Manda's hands trembled as she opened the folder. The documents were thick, official, already stamped and notarized. They'd planned this for weeks, maybe months, prepared everything in advance. This wasn't a termination. It was a carefully orchestrated ambush designed to humiliate and destroy. "Andrew?" She looked at her husband. The man she'd loved with everything she had. The man she'd built an empire for while he took every credit, every accolade, every congratulations for work she'd done in languages he couldn't speak. Andrew finally spoke. His voice was ice wrapped in contempt. 3 years was enough time to prove yourself. My father was right about you from the beginning. You were never Silva material. You don't have the breeding, the connections, the class. You were always just pretending to belong in our world. I brought in every major contract you've celebrated for the last 3 years. Every expansion into new markets came through relationships I built, negotiations I handled, which you were paid for." Gabriel interrupted, each word sharp as a blade designed to cut deep, handsomely. "With the Silva name attached to your work, with Silva resources behind you, with Silva money funding every trip, every dinner, every handshake you made. Without us, You're exactly what you were when my son found you. Nobody from nowhere with big dreams and no way to achieve them. A secretary who got lucky." The room was silent. Executives stared at the table, at their hands, at anything except Manda's face. Cowards, all of them. Witnesses to an assassination who wouldn't lift a finger to stop it. "Sign the papers," Gabriel continued, leaning back in his chair like a man who'd already won. "Or we can make this truly ugly. We have documentation ready, performance issues spanning your entire tenure, attitude problems reported by multiple colleagues, inappropriate conduct with international partners. Would you like us to share that fiction with the world? Destroy what little reputation you think you have? Those are lies." "Are they?" Gabriel's smile widened. "Prove it. Take us to court. Spend years fighting while we bury you in legal motions and destroy your name in every industry publication that matters, or sign, take your personal belongings and disappear quietly. Choice is yours." Manda looked at Andrew again, saw the slight smirk he wasn't even trying to hide anymore. He was enjoying this, watching her be broken down in front of everyone who mattered. This was his moment of triumph, finally being more powerful than the wife who'd always been smarter. She picked up the pen. Her hand shook with barely contained rage. "Smart girl," Gabriel murmured, victory dripping from every syllable. She signed every page. Didn't bother reading the terms, because whatever they were taking from her, she'd already lost the moment she walked through those doors. When the last signature was complete, she closed the folder with deliberate precision. Stood, picked up her portfolio, met Gabriel's eyes with steel she didn't know she possessed. "I'm done." "Yes," Gabriel agreed, satisfaction oozing from every pore. "You certainly are." Manda walked toward the double doors on legs that threatened to give out. Her heels clicked against marble floors like a countdown. Every eye in the room tracked her movement. The walk of shame. The public execution complete. Another woman erased by men who couldn't stand her competence. She reached for the door handle, and her professional life ended. Behind her, a chair scraped violently against the floor. Robert Kingston stood. The chief financial officer, the man who'd worked beside Manda on every major deal for 3 years, who'd seen firsthand what she built while Andrew played golf and took credit. He didn't say anything, just stood there, tall and defiant, shoulders squared. Then another chair moved. Lisa Thorne, Vice President of Operations, standing. Marcus Webb, Director of Strategic Planning, standing. One by one, 7 executives rose from their seats. The people who actually understood what Manda had accomplished, the ones who knew the truth that Gabriel was trying to bury. Gabriel's face went white, then red. "Sit down, all of you, right now. This is insubordination." Robert finally spoke, his voice carrying across the boardroom with the weight of truth too long suppressed. "Mrs. Silva built the international division you've been bragging about to investors for 3 years. She negotiated every major contract while your son took credit and cashed checks he didn't earn. Every person standing in this room knows it. We've watched it, we've documented it, and I will not sit here and pretend this is anything except what it really is. You erasing someone because she made your son look incompetent by comparison, because she threatened your narrative, because she was better than both of you combined. Kingston, you're finished at this company." "No, sir, you are. We all are. Because none of us can work for people who destroy talent to protect incompetence." The 7 executives walked toward the doors toward Manda. Behind her now, a wall of support she hadn't expected, hadn't dared to hope for. "Anyone who leaves this room is done at Silva." Gabriel's voice cracked, decades of authority slipping through his fingers. "You'll never work in this industry again. I'll make sure of it. I'll destroy every single one of you." Lisa Thorne stopped, turned back. Her voice was steady, calm, devastating. "Then I guess we're all done, Mr. Silva. Better to be finished with dignity than stay and watch good people be destroyed by bad men." Andrew tried to step forward, some flicker of doubt crossing his face. "Dad, maybe we should reconsider." Shut up! Gabriel rounded on his son with fury usually reserved for business rivals. You said she'd just leave. You promised me she'd sign and go quietly. You said no one would care. I thought, you don't think that's the problem. That's always been the goddamn problem. You're useless without someone like her doing the actual work. The truth hung in the air, ugly and undeniable. Manda pushed through the doors. The 7 executives followed. The hallway stretched ahead, empty and bright, with morning sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that suddenly felt like freedom. Behind them, Gabriel's voice echoed through the closing doors, desperate and furious. "Get back here, all of you! You're making the biggest mistake of your careers!" Nobody turned around. Nobody hesitated. The elevator dinged. Doors opened. They all stepped inside together. Robert looked at Manda as the doors began to close. "We need to talk. Tonight. All of us." He handed her a business card with an address written on the back in pen. 7 o'clock. Come alone. And Mrs. Silver? He paused, his expression fierce and loyal. "Bring everything you have. Documents, emails, recordings, evidence, everything, because we're about to show them what happens when you publicly execute someone who actually holds all the power. We're about to teach Gabriel Silver what consequences look like." The elevator doors closed on Manda's reflection, a woman who just lost everything she thought mattered, surrounded by people who just risked everything to stand with her. Her phone buzzed immediately. Text from Andrew. "Baby, please. We can fix this. Dad went too far. Come home and we'll sort this out together." She blocked his number without responding. The elevator reached the ground floor, and Manda Boland stepped out into a world where she was no longer a Silver. Strange. She'd expected to feel destroyed. Instead, she felt free. Chapter 2. The Documents of Truth. The restaurant was the kind of place where conversations disappeared into dark wood and leather booths, where privacy cost extra and discretion was guaranteed by well-paid staff who knew how to forget. Manda arrived exactly at 7, having spent the day in a fog of shock and rage. She'd gone back to the apartment, her former apartment, she reminded herself bitterly, and grabbed what she could before the locks were inevitably changed. 3 boxes of files she'd kept hidden in her home office, 2 external drives containing backups of everything, a laptop that held 3 years of her life's work, all the insurance she'd gathered without consciously planning to need it. Robert Kingston sat in the corner booth, but he wasn't alone. The other 6 executives who'd walked out that morning filled the surrounding seats: Lisa Thorne, Marcus Webb, David Ortega, Jennifer Kim, Hassan Ali, Priya Kapoor, the core team that had actually built Silver's international expansion while Andrew pretended to lead Mrs. Silver. Robert stood, gestured to the empty chair they'd saved for her. "Thank you for coming. I know today was hell." Just Manda now. She slid into the booth, set her bag down with the weight of evidence it contained. "I'm not a Silver anymore. Never really was, I suppose." "You never wanted to be," Lisa said quietly, understanding in her eyes. "We all knew that you were always Manda Boland, who happened to marry into their family. The work was yours. The vision was yours. The Silver name was just the prison they kept you in." Robert pushed a thick folder across the table, and Manda's heart began racing before she even opened it. "We've been documenting everything for 18 months. Since it became crystal clear that Gabriel was grooming Andrew to take full control, and Andrew was systematically erasing your contributions from every report, every presentation, every conversation that mattered." Manda opened the folder with shaking hands, page after page of printed emails, financial breakdowns showing revenue by actual negotiator contract timelines, with her name buried in footnotes while Andrew's signature appeared prominently on every major deal. Meeting notes where her strategies were attributed to him. It was comprehensive, damning, and heartbreaking. "Why?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Why document this if you knew what was happening? Why not warn me?" "We tried," Marcus said, frustration evident in his voice. Remember 6 months ago when I asked if you'd ever considered going independent? When Lisa mentioned that consulting firms were always looking for talent like yours? Manda remembered she'd dismissed it as casual conversation. We were trying to help you see the exit before Gabriel locked the door, Lisa continued. But you were loyal. You believed Andrew when he said he valued you. You believed in the marriage. We couldn't explicitly tell you what we saw coming without destroying your relationship and possibly our jobs if we were wrong. You weren't wrong. No, Jennifer agreed sadly. We weren't. Gabriel's been trying to force you out since the wedding. He never wanted Andrew married to someone as competent as you. It made Andrew look weak by comparison, made Gabriel look like he'd raised an incompetent heir, but he couldn't fire you quietly because you were too valuable. You were the reason international revenue tripled, so he waited. Waited for what? For Andrew to find someone else, Hassan said bluntly. Someone from the right family, the right background, someone whose value came from connections rather than competence. Then he could manufacture a reason to get rid of you. The truth settled in Manda's stomach like ice. Sophia Carrington. Her family owns commercial real estate across the eastern seaboard, Priya confirmed. Gabriel's been courting that connection since last year. Sophia's father was open to a merger. Their property portfolio for Silver's international contracts. The marriage was always part of the negotiation. How long has Andrew been seeing her? 8 months that we know of, David said. Maybe longer. Gabriel kept it very quiet, but rumors circulate in our circles. He needed you to finish the Southeast Asian contracts before he pulled the trigger on the divorce. Once those were signed and secured, you became expendable. Worse than expendable, you became a liability, too strong, too independent, too likely to challenge Andrew's authority once you realized how little he actually contributed. Manda sat back, processing layers of betrayal she hadn't fully grasped in that boardroom. This wasn't impulse or anger. This was calculated elimination. She'd been a useful tool that Gabriel had disposed of the moment a better tool became available. Here's what we have, Robert said, pulling out another folder even thicker than the first. Documentation showing you initiated and closed 43 major contracts over 3 years. Combined value of those agreements exceeds $340 million in revenue. Every single one credits Andrew as lead negotiator. But we have the emails showing you drafted the proposals, the meeting notes proving you developed the strategies, the travel records showing you were the one on the ground in Jakarta, Manila, Bangkok, Mumbai, while Andrew was playing golf in Connecticut. It was you. Always you, and we can prove it. We also have recordings, David added, pulling out a small device. Strategy sessions where you laid out the entire approach, step by step, and Andrew nodded along like he understood international trade policy. Then he'd present it to Gabriel word for word as his own idea. Sometimes he'd get details wrong because he didn't actually understand what you'd taught him. We documented all of it. Manda's hands shook as she flipped through evidence of 3 years of systematic theft, her work, her strategies, her relationships, all stolen, all credited to a man who could barely find half these countries on a map without help. "Why are you giving me this?" she asked, though she thought she knew. "Because we're done," Robert said flatly, steel in his voice. "All 7 of us submitted formal resignations this afternoon, effective immediately. We will not work for people who destroy talent and reward incompetence. We won't be complicit in that system anymore." "But Silver is one of the biggest firms." "Sinking," Lisa interrupted. "Without you, without us, they're going to discover very quickly that Andrew can't actually do the job he's been taking credit for. The international contacts were yours, the relationships were yours, the strategy was yours. Gabriel just fired the only person holding that division together and drove away everyone who knew how she did it." Marcus pulled out yet another folder. Manda wondered how much evidence they'd actually compiled. "We've also been approached, quietly, by competitors who've wanted to hire us for years, but we stayed because we believed in what you were building. Now, we're free agents, and we want you to fight." "Take them to court," Jennifer urged. Use this evidence. Make them admit publicly what they did to you. Make them face consequences. Manda looked at the faces around the table. People who'd risked their careers, their reputations, their financial security to stand with her. People who believed she was worth fighting for when her own husband hadn't. Gabriel called me this afternoon, she said quietly. Offered $5 million to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Walk away quietly. Never speak about my time at Silver. Never discuss the divorce. Disappear completely. And? Robert asked, though his expression suggested he knew the answer. I told him to go to hell and hung up. Smiles appeared around the table. Grim, satisfied, fierce smiles. Good, Robert said, because we're about to show him what happens when you publicly humiliate someone who actually built your empire. We're going to dismantle everything Gabriel Silver spent 40 years building. Manda's phone buzzed. Another text from Andrew, sent from a different number since she'd blocked him. Please talk to me. Dad went too far. I'll make this right. I'll fix everything. Just come home. I love you. She showed the screen to the group. He thinks you'll come back, Priya observed. He thinks you need him. Need the Silver name. Need the protection of their reputation. He's always thought that, Manda said. That's why this worked for so long. I believed it too. Believed I needed them to succeed. That without the Silver connection, I was nobody. And now? Lisa asked. Manda looked at the evidence spread across the table. 3 years of her life reduced to documents and recordings. Proof that she'd been exceptional while being told she was ordinary. Proof that she'd built something extraordinary while watching someone else wear the crown she'd earned. Her phone buzzed again. This time Gabriel's name appeared. Name your price. Let's handle this like adults. Professionally. No need for drama. She typed back with steady fingers. You handled it professionally this morning in front of 52 witnesses. Now we do this my way. See you in court. She hit send before she could second-guess herself, and something inside her shifted, hardened, transformed from hurt into purpose. Robert was grinning. So you're fighting? I'm not fighting, Manda corrected, her voice steady and cold. I'm destroying them. There's a difference. Fighting implies they have a chance to win. We'll need lawyers, Marcus said. Good ones, aggressive ones. I know someone, Hassan offered. Catherine Reeves. Used to work for the Justice Department prosecuting corporate fraud. Left to start her own firm, specializing in employment litigation. She's absolutely brutal in court. Destroys people like Gabriel Silver before breakfast. Set up a meeting, Manda said, authority creeping back into her voice. Tomorrow morning, if possible. What about tonight? Lisa asked. Where are you staying? You can't go back to that apartment. The question hung in the air. Manda hadn't thought that far ahead, too focused on survival to consider logistics. I was going to pack tonight, but Gabriel owns the building. I'm guessing the locks are already changed. They are, Jennifer confirmed. I called earlier and played dumb. Asked the front desk about access codes. Security said they had explicit orders to deny you entry. He locked you out of your own home before you even left the building this morning. So he locked me out of his property, Manda corrected bitterly. Another way to control the narrative. Make me homeless. Make me desperate. Make me crawl back begging. He doesn't know you very well, David observed. No, Manda agreed. He never bothered to learn. David pulled out his phone. I'm calling my brother. He owns a boutique hotel downtown. You'll stay there tonight? On us tomorrow, we start planning your counterattack. Tomorrow we begin the war. But before Manda could respond, before any of them could move forward, her phone rang. Not a text this time. An actual call, unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something, instinct, curiosity, fate, made her swipe to accept. A man's voice came through, deep and warm, with a hint of amusement threading through genuine concern. Manda Boland, I've been waiting 3 years for you to finally leave that circus. Took you long enough. She recognized the voice immediately, and her heart did something unexpected. Julian Cross, venture capitalist. They'd met at international trade conferences over the years, had talked strategy over coffee, while Andrew schmoozed with people who didn't matter and couldn't help him. Julian had always seen her, really seen her, not Mrs. Silver, Manda. How did you get this number? I know people who know people. I also know what happened this morning. It's already making the rounds, 7 executives walking out behind you. That's the kind of story that travels fast in our world. That's the kind of story that changes things. I'm not interested in being a story. No, Julian agreed, understanding in his voice. You're interested in winning, which is why I'm calling. I have a guest house, empty, fully furnished, completely private. No strings attached, no expectations, no debt. Just a safe place to land while you figure out your next move. Why would you help me? We barely know each other. I've watched Gabriel Silva steal credit from talented people for 20 years, Julian said, and something sharp entered his voice. I've watched Andrew fumble through negotiations you set up for him. I've watched them erase your name from victories that were entirely yours. I've been waiting for someone to finally stand up and fight back. Turns out that someone is you. So, guest house, yes or no? And before you say no out of pride, understand something. I'm very good at identifying investments that will pay off, and you, Manda Boland, are about to be the best investment I've ever made. Around the table, Robert nodded. Lisa gave her a thumbs up. The team she'd built, the people who'd stood with her, were telling her to accept Manda made her decision. Send me the address. Chapter 3. The Safe House. The townhouse sat in a neighborhood where money whispered instead of shouted. Old trees lined the street with branches that created canopies of shadow and safety. Garden lights glowed soft against brick and stone. This was wealth that didn't need to prove itself. This was power that came from substance instead of show. Julian Cross opened the door before Manda could knock, and seeing him here, in his space, in his element, felt different from those conference meetings, more real, more dangerous, more like stepping into something that would change everything. He was exactly as she remembered from those brief encounters over the years. Tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that missed nothing and a smile that suggested he knew secrets other people hadn't figured out yet. But there was something else now, a seriousness, a focus directed entirely at her that made her feel visible in a way she hadn't felt in years. Manda Boland. He stepped aside, gestured her in with quiet grace. Welcome to freedom. First day is always the hardest. The interior was elegant without being showy, comfortable furniture that looked lived in rather than staged. Art on the walls that appeared original, real pieces chosen for meaning rather than investment value, books everywhere, actual books with cracked spines and dog-eared pages. This was a home, not a showpiece. This was authenticity, something the Silver Mansion had never possessed. The guest house is through the back garden, Julian said, leading her through French doors into a small courtyard, lit by lanterns that cast warm golden light, separate entrance, full kitchen, office space with high-speed internet, privacy, everything you need to plan your next move without interruption. The guest house was perfect, modern, but warm, designed for living rather than impressing, a place where she could think, plan, rebuild without performing for anyone's benefit. Why are you doing this? Manda asked, setting down her single suitcase, everything else locked in that apartment she'd never see again, every possession she'd owned reduced to what fit in one bag. Julian leaned against the doorframe, studying her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. Honest answer. Please. I've watched Gabriel Silva operate for 20 years. I've seen him crush people who threatened his control. I've watched Andrew fail upward on the backs of talented people his father hired and discarded like tissues. And I've watched you specifically for 3 years now, building something extraordinary while they took credit and treated you like you should be grateful for the opportunity to make them look good. I'm tired of watching. Time to act. Time to see what happens when someone actually fights back. You don't know me, not really. We've had coffee a few times at conferences. That's not a relationship. I know you're brilliant at reading international markets, Julian said, ticking off points on his fingers. I know you speak 4 languages fluently and can negotiate in 3 more. I know you closed the Jakarta contract in 18 hours after Andrew spent 6 months making 0 progress because he couldn't be bothered to learn about Indonesian business culture. I know you rewrote Silva's entire approach to Asian partnerships and they pretended it was their institutional wisdom. I know you're loyal to a fault. I know you see the best in people even when they don't deserve it. Should I continue? Manda sat down on the couch, suddenly exhausted by the weight of the day. The betrayal, the validation from a man who'd been paying attention when she thought no one was. They're going to come after me. Gabriel doesn't lose quietly. He's going to destroy me. Good. Julian moved into the room, sat across from her with deliberate space between them. Close enough to support, far enough to give her room. Let them come. Let them try. You've got 7 executives who just blew up their careers to stand with you. You've got documentation of everything you built. You've got witnesses who'll testify to the truth. And now you've got me. What do you get out of this? Front row seat to the most satisfying takedown I'll ever witness, Julian said with that dangerous smile. Plus, when you build your next company, and you will, Manda, you absolutely will, I want in on the ground floor. I want to be part of something real instead of watching talented people get crushed by mediocre men with inherited wealth. Manda laughed, and it felt strange. She couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed. Months, maybe longer. You think I'm starting a company after all this? I think you're going to take a few weeks to process what happened. Then you're going to get angry. Then you're going to channel that anger into destroying Silva International. And then, after you've proven you never needed them, you're going to build something better, something that can't be stolen or erased, something entirely yours. And I think Gabriel Silva just made the worst mistake of his life by giving you nothing left to lose. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again, and again, and again in rapid succession. Julian nodded toward it. Andrew? And Gabriel, and blocked numbers that are probably their attorneys, and my former assistant who's probably been ordered to reach me. They're panicking. Let them sweat. But Manda picked up the phone anyway, needing to see 27 missed calls, 63 text messages. Her email inbox was flooded with legal threats, mixed with desperate pleas, mixed with attempts at manipulation. One message from Andrew stood out from the desperate noise. I'm coming over. We need to talk face to face. This is ridiculous. You're my wife. He doesn't know where I am, Manda said. Yet, Julian replied calmly, but he'll figure it out eventually. This city talks, money talks louder. Are you ready to face him when he shows up? Before she could answer, the doorbell rang through the main house, then pounding, aggressive, demanding, entitled pounding that made Julian's jaw tighten. Manda, I know you're here. Andrew's voice carried through the evening air, slurred slightly. He'd been drinking. Please, just talk to me. We can fix this. Julian stood. Want me to handle this? No. Manda was already moving toward the main house, something fierce rising in her chest. I want to see what happens when he doesn't get what he wants for the first time in his privileged life. She walked through the courtyard, through the house, and stopped at the front door. Julian stayed behind her, silent support. Through the security camera screen, she could see Andrew on the steps. He'd changed out of his boardroom suit into casual clothes, designer jeans, expensive jacket. He'd brought flowers, playing the role of apologetic husband who'd made a mistake, performing contrition he didn't feel. She pressed the intercom button. Go home, Andrew. Baby, please, let me in. Let me explain. This is all Dad's doing. I didn't want any of this. Explain what? How you stood beside your father while he destroyed me in front of 52 people. How you called me nothing. How you've been sleeping with Sophia Carrington for 8 months. How you've been stealing credit for my work since the day we got married. Which part needs explanation exactly? The flowers dropped from Andrew's hands, petals scattering on the steps. His face crumpled, mask slipping. Who told you about Sophia? Does it matter? Everyone knew except me. I was the only one stupid enough to believe you actually loved me. I do love you. I made mistakes. I'm sorry. Just let me in and we'll figure this out together like we always do. Like we always do? Manda's laugh was bitter through the intercom. You mean like I figure things out and you take credit? Like I solve problems and you pretend you were involved? There is no we, Andrew. There never was. There was me doing the work and you stealing the glory. You can't survive without the Silver name. His voice shifted, anger replacing desperation faster than he could control. You think you matter? You think anyone will work with you after this? My father will make sure you never work again. He'll destroy you. He'll bury you so deep no one will remember you existed. Is that a threat? It's reality. It's how the world works. You need us. You need the Silver name and the Silver connections and the Silver money. Without us protecting you, you're nothing. You're about to find out how hard the real world is when you don't have my father making your path smooth. Julian stepped into the camera frame beside Manda, and something in his presence, calm, powerful, unimpressed, made the statement clearer than words. Andrew's face went white, then red. Who the hell is that? Someone who sees my value, Manda said simply. Something you never managed to do in 3 years of marriage. Manda, you're making a huge mistake. My father will bury you. We'll destroy everything you touch, everyone you work with, every client you try to contact. You're finished. Do you understand? Finished. Julian picked up his phone calmly, called someone. I need security at my residence. Trespassing and threats. Yes, thank you. 5 minutes later, 2 private security officers escorted Andrew off the property. He went quietly once badges appeared, but his final look toward the house was pure hatred mixed with something else, fear. He was realizing his power was hollow, his threats were empty, his control was broken. Manda watched from the window until his car disappeared around the corner, taillights fading into the darkness that was about to swallow everything he'd taken for granted. You okay? Julian asked quietly. I thought I'd feel something, Manda admitted, the adrenaline fading into strange numbness. Anger, sadness, regret, even vindication. But I feel nothing. Is that normal? You're in shock. Your brain is protecting you from processing too much at once. Give it time. The anger will come, then the grief, then the acceptance, then the transformation. What if it doesn't? Then you're already free of him, Julian said, which is even better, which means he already lost everything that mattered. Manda's phone rang. Robert Kingston. Manda, turn on the financial news right now. She grabbed the remote. Julian pulled up a news channel. The headline scrolled across the bottom in breaking news read, Silver International in crisis, 7 senior executives resign following controversial termination. The anchor was mid-sentence. Unprecedented walkout that has sent Silver International stock into freefall, dropping 12% in after hours. Trading investors are demanding emergency meetings about what multiple sources are calling an internal power struggle that cost the company its entire international leadership team in a single day. The Silver family has not yet issued a statement, but analysts suggest this could be the beginning of a much larger crisis at one of America's most prestigious family corporations. The screen cut to footage of the Silver building reporters camped outside, shareholders looking furious, shouting questions that went unanswered. Then Gabriel Silver appeared, surrounded by lawyers, making a statement to cameras. Silver International remains strong and stable. The recent departures were necessary, personnel changes that will ultimately strengthen our foundation and our future. We're moving forward with confidence, with clear vision, and with the talent that has always defined this company. But his hands shook as he read from prepared notes. His voice lacked conviction. His eyes showed panic he was trying desperately to hide. The anchor came back. Wall Street analysts paint a different picture. Silver's international division generated 40% of company revenue last quarter, and multiple sources say every major relationship in that division was built and maintained by the terminated employee, identified as Manda Boland Silver, who also happens to be CEO Andrew Silver's soon-to-be ex-wife. Photos appeared on screen. Manda at international conferences. Manda shaking hands with foreign ministers and CEOs, Manda speaking at global forums. All photos Gabriel had tried to bury in company archives. All moments Andrew had claimed as his own victories. This is just the beginning, the anchor continued. Multiple sources indicate Mrs. Silver has retained legal counsel and may be preparing a lawsuit that could expose widespread misconduct at one of America's most prestigious family corporations. Stay tuned for more developments on this breaking story. The segment ended. The screen cut to commercials. Manda stared at the blank television, processing, "It's happening." "Yes," Julian agreed. "The empire is cracking. First crack is always the loudest. They'll try to seal it, try to control the narrative, but it's too late. The truth is out there now, and truth spreads faster than lies once it gets momentum." Her phone exploded. Text after text from numbers she didn't recognize, reporters wanting statements, attorneys offering services, headhunters smelling blood in the water. People who'd ignored her for 3 years suddenly desperate for her attention, now that she was the story instead of the footnote. One message made her smile through the chaos. From Lisa Thorne, "Welcome to being famous. Hope you're ready, because every business publication in America is about to want your story." Another from Robert, "Gabriel's lawyers are already trying to spin this as disgruntled employees seeking revenge. Don't respond to anything without counsel. We fight smart. We fight strategic. We fight to win." Then one more, from a blocked number. But she knew who it was even before reading it. "You'll regret this. My father always wins. Always. He's destroyed better people than you for less. And when he's done with you, there won't be enough left to bury. You should have taken the money." Manda showed it to Julian without speaking. He looked at her carefully, reading her expression. Scared? No, she realized with something like wonder. Excited. "I spent 3 years being afraid of them. Afraid of losing the Silver name. Afraid of not being enough. Afraid of being exposed as an imposter who didn't deserve to be in their world. But standing in that boardroom this morning, signing those papers, walking out with nothing. That was the most terrifying moment of my life, and I survived it. So what else can they possibly take from me?" Julian's smile was fierce and proud. "Absolutely nothing. They already played their worst card. Now it's your turn." Manda's laptop chimed. Email from Hassan Ali with a subject line that made her pulse quicken. "Your new attorney. She's perfect." The message contained a single attachment and one sentence. "Meet Catherine Reeves. She destroys people like Gabriel Silver for sport. Available tomorrow morning? Say yes." Manda replied, "Yes, set it up, first thing." She closed the laptop and looked at Julian. "Thank you for this. For seeing me when everyone else was looking at the Silver name." "I didn't do anything except offer space," Julian said. "You did the hard part. You walked out, you survived. Now you're going to win. I'm just here to watch and cheer." "Is that all you're here for?" Something shifted in the air between them, recognition of attraction that had been building for 3 years over coffee and conference room conversations. Possibility that hadn't been possible when she was married, future that was suddenly wide open. "For now," Julian said carefully, "right now you need a friend, an ally, someone with no agenda except seeing you succeed. Later, when you're ready, we can talk about what else I might be here for." It was the perfect answer. No pressure, no expectations, just honest intention and patient waiting. "Later," Manda agreed, "when I'm ready." But she was already more ready than she'd been for anything in 3 years. Chapter 4. The counter-strike. Word count 1,343. Catherine Reeves walked into Julian's dining room the next morning like she owned every space she entered. Sharp suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Sharper eyes that catalogued everything in seconds. Leather briefcase that probably contained enough evidence to ruin several lives. Mrs. Silver. Catherine extended her hand with a grip that meant business. Or should I say Ms. Boland? Let's decide that right now. Who do you want to be in the lawsuit? Manda Boland, she said without hesitation. I'm done being a Silver in any form. Perfect. Manda it is. Catherine set the briefcase on the table with a decisive click. Let's talk about how we're going to systematically dismantle a family empire that stood for 40 years. Robert and the other 6 executives had arrived earlier, transforming Julian's elegant dining room into a war room. Laptops covered every surface, documents spread across the table. Coffee pot working overtime. Catherine pulled out a yellow legal pad covered in her aggressive handwriting. Here's what we're looking at strategically. You want justice, Gabriel wants silence. Andrew wants absolution he hasn't earned. The media wants blood and headlines. We're going to give everyone exactly what they want except the Silvers. What's the legal strategy? Marcus asked, leaning forward. Multi-pronged attack. Intellectual property theft. You developed strategies on your own time that Silvers claimed as proprietary, unpaid compensation, commissions that were promised but never delivered. Defamation. Gabriel's public statements about your performance. Possibly fraud if we can prove Andrew knowingly signed contracts he didn't negotiate, and if I'm lucky, we'll find employment discrimination buried in there somewhere. Catherine looked directly at Manda. How much documentation do you actually have? Not what you think you have, what you can prove in court under hostile cross-examination. Everything. Manda opened her laptop, pulled up organized folders, 3 years of emails showing strategy development, meeting recordings where I presented approaches that Andrew later claimed as his own ideas, strategy documents in my handwriting with timestamps proving I created them. Travel receipts showing I was the one meeting with international partners while Andrew was stateside testimonials from foreign executives confirming they worked exclusively with me, all of it organized, backed up and ready for discovery. And you have witnesses, Catherine gestured to the 7 executives, people with nothing to gain and everything to lose who will testify under oath that you were the architect while Andrew was essentially decorative. We've been documenting for 18 months, Robert confirmed. We have evidence that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. Good, Catherine said, something predatory entering her smile. Because Gabriel will fight this with everything he has. His legal team is expensive, connected and predictable. They rely on intimidation and delay tactics. We're going to hit them so fast and so hard they won't have time to build a defense. What's the first move? Manda asked, adrenaline starting to replace the exhaustion. Catherine's smile widened. We file everything at once. Lawsuit, public statement, evidence dumped to financial media. We don't give them room to control the narrative. By the time Gabriel's lawyers finish reading our complaint, the entire business world will already know what he did. That's incredibly aggressive, David said, respect in his voice. That's winning, Catherine corrected. Gabriel destroyed Manda publicly. We return the favor, but we do it legally and with evidence he can't dispute. Julian, who'd been quiet in the corner, finally spoke. Timeline? We file tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp. I've already drafted the complaint. Just needs Manda's signature and final review. Tomorrow? Manda felt her heart race. That's... Before Gabriel has time to hide assets, manufacture contradictory evidence, or pressure your former colleagues into silence, Catherine finished. He's scrambling right now. Stock is falling. Investors are demanding answers. This is when you strike. When the enemy is disorganized and panicking. Manda's phone buzzed text from Gabriel himself. 5 million. Final offer. Sign the NDA by end of business today, or the offer disappears and things get very ugly for you. She showed Catherine the message. Perfect. Catherine photographed the screen with practiced efficiency. Attempted witness tampering. He just made our case stronger and gave us ammunition for punitive damages. Should I respond? Absolutely. Catherine's smile was dangerous. Tell him you'll see him in court. Let him think you're being emotional and impulsive. Manda typed, "Keep your money, Gabriel. I want the truth. See you in court." His response was immediate and furious. "You're making the worst mistake of your life. I will destroy everything you love, everyone you've ever worked with. When I'm done with you, you'll wish you'd taken the money and disappeared." "Screenshot that too," Catherine said. "Threats against a witness, intimidation. Gabriel's lawyers are going to absolutely hate him after tomorrow." Over the next 6 hours, they built something airtight and devastating. Every document cross-referenced, every testimony corroborated, every claim backed by evidence so overwhelming that denial became laughable. Lisa brought up a critical question around 3 in the afternoon. What if they try to settle? Big payout, public apology, everything sealed. "We reject it," Manda said without hesitation, surprising herself with the certainty. "This isn't about money. This is about making sure everyone knows who actually built that company." "Even if they offer enough money to set you up for life?" Hassan asked carefully. "Especially then." Manda's voice was steel. "They're counting on me being practical, being reasonable, taking the easy way out, but I'm done being convenient for men who built their empires on stolen work." Catherine nodded with fierce approval. "That's exactly the energy we need." The doorbell rang, cutting her off. Julian checked the security camera, and his expression shifted to something carefully neutral. "It's Andrew's mother, Elena Silva." Silence fell across the room like a physical weight. "Should I send her away?" Julian asked. Manda stood. Decision made. "No, I want to hear what she has to say." Elena Silva stood on the front steps, looking every inch the society matriarch, designer clothes, perfect hair, carefully maintained appearance. But her eyes showed strain. Manda opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Mrs. Silva." "Manda, thank you for seeing me." Elena's voice trembled with what might have been genuine emotion. "May I come inside? Please, I need to speak with you privately. Say what you need to say from there. I have witnesses. I want witnesses for whatever this is." Elena glanced at the security camera, at Julian visible in the background. "My son made a terrible mistake. My husband made a worse one. But you're family, Manda. You'll always be family. We can fix this." "I was family when I was useful," Manda said, each word deliberate. "What am I now, besides the woman your husband publicly destroyed to make room for better connections? You're a woman who was treated badly and deserves much better." Eleanor's eyes glistened with tears. "Please, come home. We'll make this right. Gabriel will apologize publicly. Andrew will end things with Sophia immediately, whatever you need. I need you to leave. Manda, please listen. Your husband destroyed me in front of 52 people to clear the path for your son to marry someone with better family connections. You sat in your mansion knowing exactly what was happening and did nothing to stop it. Now you're here because the stock is falling and you're realizing too late that I was the one holding your empire together. But I don't want your apology. I want you to go home and tell Gabriel exactly what's about to happen to him. Elena's tears stopped. Her face hardened, mask dropping. What's about to happen? Tomorrow morning, the entire world is going to learn what your family really is. Every contract I negotiated while Andrew took credit, every strategy I developed while your family pretended institutional wisdom built your expansion, all of it. Public record, permanent, undeniable. You'll never work again. No one crosses Gabriel Silva and survives in this industry. Had power, Manda corrected. Past tense, because that power was built on people like me doing the actual work, and now everyone's about to know it. Elena's facade cracked completely. "He'll bury you. My husband always wins, Manda, always." "Your husband is about to learn that winning requires actually being competent," Manda said, "which neither he nor your son has ever been. Now get off this property before I have security remove you." She closed the door on Elena's shocked face. Inside, the war room had gone completely silent. "That was brutal," Robert said quietly. "That was necessary," Manda corrected. Catherine was grinning. "I officially love you. That backbone is exactly what we need tomorrow when Gabriel's lawyers try to intimidate you." Manda's phone rang. Unknown number. A woman's voice, young and uncertain. "Is this Manda Boland?" "Who's asking?" "My name is Sophia Carrington. I know you have every reason to hate me, but I think we need to talk. I have information about Gabriel Silva that you need to hear. Information that will help your case. Can we meet?" Catherine was already mouthing yes and making recording gestures. "Why would you help me?" Manda asked carefully. "Because I've spent 8 months watching what they did to you," Sophia said, her voice gaining strength. "And I realized I'm next. I'm about to become exactly what you were. A useful asset to be exploited and discarded when something better comes along. But I'm not going down without a fight, and neither should you. Can we meet? Tomorrow morning before you file? I have recordings. Gabriel doesn't know I've been documenting everything." Manda looked at Catherine, who was nodding enthusiastically. "Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Send me the location." "Thank you," Sophia said, genuinely grateful. "What Gabriel did to you? He's been doing it to people for decades. It's time someone finally had the evidence to stop him." She hung up. Catherine was practically vibrating with excitement. "This is even better than I hoped. If Sophia Carrington is willing to testify against Gabriel, that's devastating. That's everything." "What if it's a setup?" David asked. "Then we record everything and add it to the lawsuit," Catherine said. "But I don't think it is. I think Sophia's been watching and planning, and I think she just became our nuclear weapon." Manda looked at the evidence spread across the table, at the team surrounding her, at the life she was about to reclaim through fire and truth. "Tomorrow we go to war," she said. "Tomorrow we win," Catherine corrected. Chapter 5. The Phoenix Rises. The coffee shop Sophia chose was deliberately anonymous, far from society circles, far from places either of them would normally go. Just a quiet neighborhood place where 2 women could have a conversation that would reshape everything. Sophia Carrington sat in the corner booth, looking nothing like Manda had expected. She was young, beautiful in that expensive way money buys, but her eyes carried something harder than her polished exterior suggested. This wasn't some naive society girl. This was someone who'd learned to survive in a world of predatory men. "Thank you for meeting me," Sophia said, as Manda slid into the booth. "I wasn't sure you would. You're engaged to my ex-husband. This is beyond strange. Ex-husband as of yesterday. The divorce finalized. Gabriel pushed it through at record speed." Sophia's voice was flat, emotionless. "He wanted Andrew free to propose to me, which he did last night, at dinner with both our families present. Very romantic." "You sound thrilled." "It was a business transaction. That's all it's ever been." Sophia stirred her untouched coffee with mechanical precision. "That's all I've ever been to them. A connection to my family's commercial real estate portfolio. Gabriel's been planning this for over a year." Manda sat back, studying the woman across from her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've spent 8 months watching what they did to you," Sophia said, and real anger entered her voice for the first time. "How they erased your work, took your credit. And I realized something. Gabriel did this before multiple times. To other women. He has a pattern." "What do you mean?" Sophia pulled out her phone, pulled up a folder of documents. "Before you, there was another woman, 15 years ago. Rachel Chen. She built Silva's West Coast operations from nothing. Gabriel fired her when she started asking for recognition, paid her off with an NDA. She disappeared from the industry completely. Before her there was Maria Gonzalez, who developed their Latin American strategy, fired when she threatened to go public. Also paid off. Also disappeared. Manda felt ice forming in her stomach. How do you know this? Because I'm not stupid, and Gabriel is predictable. When he started courting my father for this merger, I did research. Deep research. I found the women he'd erased. I found their stories. And I realized I was watching him do it again to you, but this time publicly, arrogantly, because he thought he'd gotten away with it enough times that no one would challenge him. So you've been planning this? I've been documenting everything since the first time Gabriel laid out his plan for Andrew to divorce you and marry me, Sophia said, her voice gaining steel. Every conversation where he explained why you were too competent, too strong-willed, too likely to overshadow Andrew every time he called you an obstacle. I recorded all of it. She slid her phone across the table. Listen. Manda picked up the phone with shaking hands, hit play on the first recording. Gabriel's voice, crystal clear. Manda was always the problem, too opinionated, too independent, too talented for her own good. She made Andrew look weak by comparison. The Carrington girl will be different. She understands her role. She knows her place is to look beautiful and provide connections. Another recording. Gabriel speaking to Andrew. The divorce needs to look like her failure, not yours. We make her small, make her forgettable, make her disappear so completely that no one even remembers she was the one building the empire. A third recording. Women like Manda are dangerous. They don't know their place. They threaten the natural order. So you crush them publicly. You destroy them in front of witnesses. You make an example. It's how I've handled this problem for 40 years. The recordings went on. Dozens of them. Gabriel admitting to decades of stealing from talented women. Manda looked at Sophia with new understanding. Why would he tell you all this? Because he thinks I'm decorative and empty-headed. Because I come from old money, so he assumes I'm as useless as the society women he knows. Because I played the role perfectly, simpering, agreeable, asking no difficult questions. He never suspected I was documenting everything. You've been planning this for 8 months. I've been protecting myself, Sophia corrected. My father pushed this marriage alliance for business reasons. He didn't care that I'd be marrying a man who can barely function without someone doing his thinking. I realized if I went through with this wedding, I'd become exactly what you were, an asset to be exploited until I was no longer useful. Manda stared at this young woman who'd been playing the long game. What do you want from me? Nothing. I want to give you something. Evidence that will destroy Gabriel completely. Proof that what he did to you wasn't personal. It's systematic, his pattern over decades. Sophia leaned forward. Take these recordings, use them in your lawsuit, show the world exactly what Gabriel Silva is, and in exchange, I want one thing. What? I want you to win, because when you win, you free me. When Gabriel's reputation is destroyed, my father will have no reason to push this marriage. I get my life back. Manda looked at Sophia. Really looked at her. This wasn't the other woman. This was another victim. This was someone fighting for survival. What happens when Gabriel finds out you gave me these recordings? He'll try to destroy me, Sophia said calmly. But my family is older money than his. We've weathered bigger scandals. And unlike you, I'm going into this with evidence of my own protection. If he comes after me, I release everything mutually assured destruction. You've thought of everything. I've had 8 months watching him destroy you to plan my defense. Sophia's voice softened slightly. I'm sorry that sounds cold. I just mean, you were loyal. You believed in your marriage, you didn't protect yourself. I'm not making that mistake. Manda forwarded the files to herself, to Catherine, to everyone who needed to hear Gabriel Silva condemn himself. What will you do now? Manda asked. I'm going to call my father, tell him I'm ending the engagement. Then I'm going to law school like I wanted before he decided my role was to marry well. Sophia stood. Then I'm going to tell everyone what Gabriel was planning with the Carrington real estate portfolio. My father's competitors will be very interested. That's going to cost your family. It'll cost us one deal. You lost 3 years of your life. I'm getting off easy. Sophia extended her hand. I'm sorry for being part of this, even unwillingly, but I'm speaking up now, Win. Manda. Win for all of us. Manda shook her hand, feeling sisterhood forged in surviving the same predator. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for being strong enough to fight your changing things for all of us. Back at Julian's house, the war room exploded into action when Catherine heard the recordings. This is gold, Catherine breathed. Absolute gold. Gabriel confessing to discrimination, admitting he fired you for being competent. This doesn't just win the case, this ends him. When do we file? Manda asked. Now. Right now. The legal team moved like lightning, documents signed, complaint filed electronically, press releases prepared. By sunset, Manda Boland versus Silver International was official. The media frenzy started within the hour. News alerts, breaking stories, financial analysts weighing in. The business world stopped to watch. Gabriel's response was immediate and vicious. His lawyers called Manda a disgruntled former employee spreading lies for financial gain. They claimed every document was falsified, but then the recordings dropped. Gabriel's voice, his own words, admitting everything. The internet exploded. Social media caught fire. Women who'd been erased shared their stories. Men who'd worked with Manda confirmed her brilliance. International partners exposed Andrew's incompetence. Silver International stock went into freefall, down 40%. Trading halted. Investors demanding answers, board members calling emergency meetings. Andrew tried damage control. My ex-wife and I had personal issues that have been unfairly brought into professional discourse. The allegations are simply not true. Nobody believed him. Sophia Carrington held a press conference with her father. She announced the end of her engagement and the cancellation of all business deals with Silver International, one family empire crumbling, another choosing integrity. Gabriel made one last play. He showed up at Julian's house with lawyers and security. Julian met them at the gate. You're trespassing. Leave now, or I call the police. This is between me and my daughter-in-law. Former daughter-in-law, Julian corrected, and she's not interested. She's destroying my family. No, Manda's voice came through the intercom. You destroyed your family the moment you valued reputation over reality, the moment you taught your son that stealing was easier than achieving. You did this, Gabriel, all of it. I made you. You gave me a stage, Manda said. I brought the performance. Now the audience knows who the real star was. Security escorted Gabriel off the property. By week's end, Silver International's board forced Gabriel into resignation. Andrew was demoted to a minor advisory role. And Manda Boland sat in Julian's guest house, watching her former father-in-law's empire crumble, feeling nothing except relief. Julian knocked, entered with food. How are you doing? I won, she said. Why doesn't it feel like I thought it would? Because winning isn't about destroying them, it's about proving you never needed them in the first place. He sat beside her. So, what's next? Manda looked at him, the man who'd offered shelter without conditions, who'd seen her value when she'd forgotten it. I'm going to build something, she said, something that can't be stolen or erased. Want a partner? She smiled. I thought you'd never ask. Chapter 6. The Empire Builds. 6 weeks after the boardroom execution that had become business legend, Manda stood in front of an empty office building and saw not what was, but what would be. Boland Global Strategies. Her name, her vision, her empire. The space was raw potential. exposed brick walls waiting for her story, high ceilings that could hold big dreams, open floor plan ready to be shaped into whatever she needed it to become. Julian stood beside her, both of them looking at blank canvas ready for transformation. "Last chance to back out," he said with that smile that meant he knew she wouldn't. "I've never been more certain about anything in my life." The 7 executives who'd walked out with her became founding partners with equal equity stakes, no hierarchy beyond expertise, no stealing credit, no silver-style erasure. Robert handled operations. Lisa managed strategic planning. Marcus took client relations. David, Jennifer, Hassan, and Priya built specialized divisions based on what they did best. Everyone contributing their strengths, everyone getting recognized for their work. Julian's investment secured infrastructure, office space, technology, legal framework, the bones of something that could become great. But more valuable than money, he brought connections, venture capital networks, international investors, people who'd watched Silver International implode and wanted to back the woman who'd exposed it. The first client came from unexpected channels. The CEO of Pacific Manufacturing called personally, his voice warm with respect Manda hadn't heard in years. "I heard you're independent now. We've been planning expansion into Latin America for 18 months but couldn't find the right partner interested." "Absolutely. Good. Because we're done with Silver." "Everyone is. Word travels fast in our world about companies that steal from their own people and lie to their clients. We want the person who actually did the work, not the family that took credit." The contract was worth $12 million. Manda negotiated it herself, structured it herself, signed it herself, collected the credit herself. It felt like oxygen after years of suffocation. The second client followed within 3 days, then a third before the week ended. Then calls started flooding in faster than they could answer. Companies that had been considering Silver contracts switched allegiance. International partners who'd worked exclusively with Manda followed her to the new firm. Executives who'd watched the Silver destruction wanted to be part of something better. Within a month, Boland Global had closed $68 million in new contracts. The media couldn't get enough of the story. Forbes requested an exclusive profile. Business journals wanted deep dives into her strategy. Financial networks asked her to comment on corporate ethics and women in leadership. The woman who'd been systematically erased had become the story everyone wanted to tell. She gave exactly 1 interview, just 1, and she chose every word with precision. The Forbes reporter asked the obvious question that everyone wanted answered. "Do you feel vindicated watching Silver International struggle while your firm succeeds?" "I don't think about Silver International," Manda said, and it was true. "I'm focused on building something better, something where talent gets rewarded instead of stolen, where women don't have to fight for credit on their own work, where success comes from actual competence instead of inherited name recognition. What happens to Silver is consequence, not my concern." "Gabriel Silver claims publicly that you're succeeding only because you stole relationships that belonged to his company." Manda's smile could have cut glass. "Those relationships existed because I built them. I learned the languages, I studied the cultures. I did the work while Gabriel Silver cashed checks and pretended his son was capable. Now those same partners are choosing me because they finally can. That's not theft, that's the free market correcting a fraud. Gabriel Silver spent 40 years stealing from talented people. Now he's discovering what happens when the talented people stop letting him." The article went viral instantly. The woman who built an empire twice and destroyed the one that tried to erase her became required reading in business schools within days. Her face appeared on magazine covers. Invitations flooded in for keynote speeches, board positions, advisory roles with organizations that suddenly remembered she existed. Gabriel tried one final desperate play. His lawyers sent an aggressive cease and desist letter claiming Manda was violating non-compete agreements and using proprietary Silver information to build her competing firm. Catherine's response was public, brutal, and legally devastating. Mr. Silva's claims are baseless and borders on harassment of a former employee he systematically exploited. Mrs. Boland's expertise belongs to her, not to the company that tried to erase it. Her knowledge, her skills, and her relationships are hers alone. We welcome Mr. Silva to pursue this in court, where we'll happily introduce even more evidence of his decades-long pattern of stealing from talented employees. We estimate that discovery alone would be utterly devastating to what little remains of his reputation. But if he insists on this path, we're ready, willing, and eager to proceed. Gabriel's lawyers withdrew the letter the same afternoon. No response, no explanation, just silence. Andrew made his own clumsy attempt at contact. He appeared at Boland Global offices on a Friday afternoon, walking past the receptionist like he still had the right to demand things. Security stopped him in the lobby before he made it to the elevators. "I need to see Manda. Tell her I'm here. It's important." The receptionist, a sharp woman named Keisha, who Manda had hired specifically because she didn't tolerate entitled behavior from powerful men, smiled with professional politeness that barely masked contempt. "Do you have an appointment, sir?" "I'm her ex-husband. She'll see me." "Miss Boland is in meetings all afternoon. If you'd like to schedule an appointment, her assistant can find time next month. Otherwise, security will escort you to the exit." Andrew's face went red with the fury of a man unused to being told no. "You can't treat me like this. Do you know who I am? My family built this industry." "Yes, sir. You're the person we're asking to leave. Now." Keisha's smile never wavered, but her hand was already on the phone. Security moved forward. Andrew left before they reached him, but not before everyone in the lobby witnessed exactly how far he'd fallen. Not before every employee saw that Manda Boland's company had standards the Silva family had never understood. That evening, Manda found Julian on the office rooftop terrace they'd built for moments exactly like this, when the day ended and the city lit up and possibility felt infinite. "Andrew came by," she said, settling beside him. "I heard. You didn't see him." "Nothing he has to say interests me anymore." She looked out at the skyline, at lights that represented other companies, other empires, other people building their dreams. "Is that cold? Should I feel guilty about being this indifferent?" "You feel what you feel. Guilt isn't mandatory just because someone expects it from you. The company's doing better than I imagined possible." "You built something real," Julian said, "something authentic. People respond to authenticity. Silva was facade and theft. This is substance and truth. There's no comparison. I couldn't have done it without your investment, without your support." "Stop," Julian said gently. "You absolutely could have done this without me. I just gave you capital and connections. Everything else, the vision, the strategy, the execution, the leadership that was already inside you, I just gave you space to let it out." Manda turned to face him fully. They'd been dancing around something for 2 months now. Careful, professional, but the attraction was undeniable. The respect deeper than anything she'd experienced with Andrew. The partnership more real than her marriage had ever been. "Why did you really help me?" she asked. The truth beneath the truth. Julian was quiet for a long moment, considering. "Because 15 years ago I built something from nothing. Worked 3 jobs, lived in my car, finally got successful, got engaged to someone I thought loved me. Then I had 1 bad year, market crash, lost everything, had to start over. She left the day my accounts hit 0. Told me she'd signed up for success, not struggle. Came back 3 years later when I'd rebuilt, acting like nothing had changed, like her abandonment didn't matter because I was profitable again. What did you do? I finally understood she'd never loved me. She loved what I could provide, loved the lifestyle, loved being with someone successful. But me, the actual person I was, she'd never bothered to know that person." His expression was distant, remembering pain that had transformed into wisdom. So when I saw what Gabriel did to you, saw him erase someone brilliant because she threatened his mediocre son's ego, I saw my ex-fiancé's pattern on a corporate scale, people who only value others for their utility. And I thought maybe, if I helped you, I could prevent someone else from learning what I learned, that being valued for what you provide instead of who you are is the loneliest feeling in the world. Did it work? You're standing on the rooftop of a company you built in 6 weeks. You're worth more without the silver name than you ever were with it. Gabriel can't touch you. Andrew has no power over you. Yeah, I'd say it worked. Manda stepped closer. Decision made. I need to tell you something, and I'm just going to say it because I've spent too many years being careful and calculated and doing what was expected. I'm falling for you. Have been for weeks, maybe longer. And I know it's probably too soon after the divorce. I know I should be smart and wait and not jump from one relationship into another. But I'm done being practical about my personal life. I have real feelings for you. Feelings that scare me because they're nothing like what I felt with Andrew. This is deeper, realer, and you deserve to know the truth. Julian's smile was slow and genuine and full of relief. You think I didn't know? You knew? Manda, you're brilliant at reading markets and terrible at hiding emotions. I've known for weeks how you feel, probably before you knew yourself. And you didn't say anything? I was waiting for you to be ready. He touched her face with gentleness that made her heart ache. I'm not Andrew. I'm not Gabriel. I don't want to own you or control you or take credit for what you build. I want to stand beside you as an equal partner and watch you become everything you're meant to be. I want to build things together where we both get credit, where we both contribute, where neither of us is diminished by the other's success. Can you handle that? She kissed him, finally, properly, the way she'd been wanting to for longer than she'd admitted to herself. When they pulled apart, Julian was grinning. So that's a yes? That's a yes to everything. Below them, the city hummed with life and ambition and the sound of empires rising and falling. Somewhere out there, Gabriel Silva was watching his legacy crumble. Andrew was learning to exist without credit for other people's work. And Manda Boland was building something they could never take away because it was genuinely, authentically, undeniably hers. Her phone buzzed. Message from Robert. Tokyo deal just closed. 42 million. This is officially unstoppable. She showed Julian the screen. He laughed, pure joy in the sound. Unstoppable sounds about right. What comes next? Manda asked. Whatever you want, Julian said. The world's completely open now. No limits, no chains, no one to tell you what you can or can't achieve. Just pure possibility. Manda looked at the skyline, at her company's lights in the building below, at the man beside her who saw her completely and loved what he saw. Then let's take all of it. Together. And for the first time in her adult life, Manda Boland felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be, building an empire with someone who would never try to steal it from her. Chapter 7. The Slow Burn. 5 months into Boland Global's existence, Manda woke up in Julian's bed and realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this kind of peace, not happiness, in the frantic way she'd chased it with Andrew, always trying to earn affection she'd never fully received. Peace. The deep kind that comes from being genuinely safe with someone who sees you completely. Julian was already awake, reading on his tablet, coffee steaming on the nightstand. Morning light filtered through the windows, painting everything gold. Good morning, he said without looking up. Your team closed Singapore last night. Congratulations on another win. How do you know before I do? Hassan texted me at 4 a.m. He was celebrating. Used 23 exclamation points this time. I think that's a record. Manda laughed, reaching for her phone to see messages she'd slept through. The Singapore deal was worth 38 million. Her team had pulled off something extraordinary while she'd been sleeping peacefully beside the man who'd become her anchor. You're good for me, she said. I actually sleep now. I never slept with Andrew. That's because your body finally knows you're safe. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop. She settled against him, his arm wrapping around her shoulders with practiced ease. They'd fallen into this rhythm like they'd been together for decades instead of months. Natural, comfortable, right in ways her marriage had never been. "Tell me something about you I don't know yet," Manda said. "Like what?" "Anything. Your real story, not the version business magazines write." Julian set down his tablet, considering, "My mother cleaned houses for wealthy families. My father laid bricks in construction. They worked brutal hours, so I could be the first person in our family to go to college. I was 28 before I owned a suit, 30 before I could afford to take a woman to a nice restaurant without checking my bank account first." "What happened to the first million you made?" "Lost it, market crash. Bad timing. Went from having everything to literally sleeping in my car overnight. I was 35, broke, wondering if my parents had wasted their sacrifices on me." "How long did it take to recover?" 5 years of grinding one client at a time, one investment at a time, learning that slow, steady growth beats fast, flashy crashes every time. Built the portfolio you know now over 15 years of refusing to take shortcuts. "And the woman who left when you lost everything?" "Met her during the rebuild. She was connected, beautiful, everything I thought success looked like. Proposed because I'd internalized that successful men get married to beautiful women. She said yes, because I could finally afford the ring she wanted." His voice carried old pain transformed into wisdom. "When I hit a rough patch, nothing like the first crash, just normal market volatility, she disappeared for 3 weeks. Came back when things stabilized. I finally understood she was only there for the good times, the profitable times." "When did you end it?" "When she planned our wedding without including me in any decisions, expensive venue I'd never seen. 300 guests I didn't know. Everything designed to look impressive on social media instead of actually mean something to us. I realized I was marrying a performance, not a person. Called it off 3 weeks before the ceremony." Manda propped herself up to look at him properly. That must have been terrifying. "It was liberation disguised as loss, like your divorce. Sometimes losing something painful is the only way to find yourself." "Is that what you see when you look at me? Someone who needed to lose everything to find herself?" "I see someone who was always herself," Julian corrected firmly. "The Silvers just spent 3 years trying to convince you otherwise, trying to make you smaller so Andrew could feel bigger. All you needed was permission to stop shrinking for people who didn't deserve your compromise." The conversation was interrupted by Manda's phone, a call, not a text. Gabriel Silver's name appeared on the screen like a ghost that wouldn't stay buried. She answered on speaker, curious what desperation sounded like months later. "What do you want, Gabriel?" His voice was strained, older than she remembered, stripped of the authority that had once terrified her. "I need to make you an offer, a genuine one this time." "I'm listening." Silver International has lost 70% of its value. Major clients have terminated contracts. Investors are demanding the board sell to a conglomerate just to salvage something. The company I spent 40 years building is dying. He took a breath that sounded like defeat. "Come back. Name your terms. Full control of international operations. Public acknowledgement that you built the division. Your name on everything, whatever salary you want. Just come back and save what's left. You're offering me the position you destroyed me for wanting. I'm admitting I was catastrophically wrong. We need you. We always needed you. Firing you was the worst decision I've ever made." "The worst business decision," Manda repeated slowly. "Not the worst moral decision, not admitting you systematically destroyed talented women, just acknowledging bad business." "Manda, here's my counteroffer. Gabriel, I'll consult for Silver International at $750,000 per contract. Publicly credited, paid in advance. Contract basis only. I will never be your employee again. I will never trust you again. But I'll save your company if you pay me what I'm actually worth." "That's extortion." That's my rate, I'm worth it. The Jakarta contract I closed in 18 hours that Andrew couldn't close in 6 months. That was worth 50 million in revenue. You think 750,000 is expensive? That's you finally paying fair market value for talent you used to steal. The board will never approve those terms. Then the board should have thought about that before letting you publicly execute the only person who knew how to do the job. She paused. You have 12 hours to decide. After that, I'm taking meetings with your 3 biggest competitors who've been very interested in what I'm building. Clock's ticking. She hung up. Julian was watching her with something like awe. You're terrifying in the best possible way. Am I being unreasonable? You're charging exactly what you're worth. Gabriel's just never had to pay fair value because he's spent decades stealing instead. Will he accept? Doesn't matter, Julian said. Either way, you win. If he accepts, you get paid properly for fixing his disaster. If he refuses, you take his remaining clients to competitors and finish destroying him. Both paths make you richer and him weaker. Manda's phone rang again. Robert this time. Boss, we need to talk. Massive opportunity just landed. Could be career-defining. But we need to move fast and think big. I'm listening. Pacific Trade Group, remember them? Just called. They're establishing permanent operations in Southeast Asia government contracts, infrastructure development, 10-year partnerships with 5 different countries. But here's the situation. They need a proposal in 10 days, and they need demonstrated expertise across multiple regions simultaneously. That's extremely aggressive. That's why they're offering premium rates and equity participation. This could be worth hundreds of millions over the contract life. But they're considering 3 firms, us, what's left of Silver, and a European consulting group. This is winner-take-all. Manda looked at Julian. Thoughts? You can do it, he said immediately, but you'll need more capital, more staff, bigger infrastructure. This is expansion-level opportunity. Or partnership. Robert said through the phone. Combine Boland Global's expertise with Julian's capital and network, you'd be unstoppable. Nobody could compete with that combination. Are you proposing I merge my company? Manda asked carefully. I'm proposing we build something bigger than either of you alone, equal partnership. Your strategic brilliance, his financial resources and connections, shared vision, shared success, Cross-Boland International. Both names, equal billing, equal power. She looked at Julian, searching his face. Is this something you'd actually want? I've been waiting for you to be ready for this conversation, Julian admitted. Boland Global is exceptional. But combined with my portfolio and network, we could reshape the entire industry, not just compete, dominate. What would it look like structurally? 50-50 ownership, joint decision-making on major choices, Cross-Boland International, your name first, because alphabetically it works, and because you're leading operations, but equal in everything that matters, control, profit, authority, built-in legal protections so neither of us can force the other out. True partnership. Manda's heart raced. This was different from Silver. This was genuine partnership between equals who respected each other. Robert, conference the team. I want everyone's input on this. 30 minutes later, her founding partners were on video call, debating the merger that could change everything. Structurally, it makes complete sense, Lisa said. We've been turning down opportunities because we don't have capital to scale fast enough. We're leaving money on the table because we're growing organically. But can we trust Julian? Hassan asked bluntly, no apology in his voice. No offense to you, Julian, but we just escaped one toxic partnership. How do we know this won't become Silver 2.0? You don't, Julian said honestly. You have to trust that I understand what I'm proposing. True partnership requires both parties to have equal power. Otherwise, it's just exploitation with prettier paperwork. So here's what I'm offering. Operating agreement with ironclad protections for Manda equal voting rights. Built-in mechanisms preventing either of us from forcing out the other. Independent board with fiduciary duty to both partners. Complete transparency on all financials. If you want more protections, name them, and my attorneys will write them in. I want all of that in writing before we vote, Jennifer said firmly. You'll have draft agreements tomorrow morning, Julian promised. I want veto power over major decisions, Marcus added. Not just for Manda, but for the core team. We built this together. We should have protection too. Reasonable. We'll structure it so founding partners have advisory board seats with significant input on strategic direction. You're not employees. You're stakeholders. That gets protected. The team debated for 90 minutes. Risks, opportunities, worst-case scenarios, best-case projections. Every angle examined. Finally, they voted. 7 votes in favor, 0 against. Boland Global and Cross Capital were about to become Cross Boland International. That night, as lawyers drafted partnership agreements and the team celebrated over champagne, Gabriel called with his answer to Manda's terms. I accept $750,000 per contract, publicly credited. You start immediately. No, Manda said simply. I've accepted a better opportunity. What opportunity? I'm building an empire that will make Silver International a footnote in business history. I'm about to close deals your company couldn't even compete for, and I'm doing it with a partner who actually values me instead of trying to erase me. You can't do this. We had an agreement. We had me naming terms and you having 12 hours to accept. You're calling at hour 14. The offer expired. Goodbye, Gabriel. She hung up for what she decided would be the final time. Gabriel Silva would never control her again, would never make her doubt her worth, would never steal credit for her work. And she was just getting started. Chapter 8, The Empire of Two. The launch event for Cross Boland International happened in a gallery space with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the city skyline and a future that felt limitless press. Investors, industry leaders, politicians. Everyone who mattered in international trade had come to witness what the woman who destroyed Silver would build next. Manda stood beside Julian, facing cameras and questions with united confidence that felt like armor. They'd rehearsed nothing. Didn't need to. True partnership spoke for itself. Ms. Boland, how does it feel to build a new company after such a public controversy? It feels like breathing after years of suffocation, Manda answered honestly. For the first time in my professional life, I'm building something that genuinely belongs to me. Something that can't be stolen because my name is on the founding documents and the operating agreement that's worth more than any salary Silver ever paid. Mr. Cross, why partner with someone whose name is connected to such dramatic corporate scandal? Scandal? Julian's smile was sharp enough to cut. You mean exposing systematic theft and discrimination? That's not scandal. That's integrity with consequences. I partner with people who have the courage to demand credit for their own work. Manda Boland is the best investment I've ever made, and this partnership will prove it. Questions continued. The press loved every angle. Former victim turned victor. Corporate revenge transformed into empire building, powerful partnership between equals. It was the narrative business media dreamed about, and Manda delivered it with grace and steel. But the real celebration happened later, after the press left and security locked the doors. Just the core team and close allies who'd made this possible. Robert raised his glass, voice carrying across the space. To Manda Boland, who taught us that standing up costs nothing compared to staying seated with cowards who steal your work. And to Julian Cross, Lisa added, for being smart enough and secure enough to actually partner with someone as brilliant as Manda instead of trying to diminish her the way Silver did. They toasted, laughed, shared war stories about the insane months that had brought them here. Hassan pulled Manda aside, expression serious. I need to tell you something. Silver International reached out last week. Offered me 3 times my current salary to come back and share your strategic approaches with them. What did you say? I told them I'd rather burn my business credentials than work for people who destroy talent and reward theft. His grin was fierce. Then I might have mentioned that their 4 biggest remaining clients were in final negotiations to switch to us. They signed yesterday. Silva just lost 63 million in annual revenue. Manda hugged him hard. Thank you for standing up that day, for risking everything, for staying loyal when it cost you. You gave us permission to have backbones, Hassan said. That's worth more than any salary Gabriel could offer. Plus, our equity in Cross Boland is about to be worth significantly more than whatever Silva was paying. The evening wound down, guests departed gradually. Eventually it was just Manda and Julian on the terrace. The city spread below them like a kingdom they were building together. We did it, Manda said. Actually built something real and meaningful. You built something real, Julian corrected. I just provided resources. The vision was always yours. Stop being modest. This is as much yours as mine. That's the entire point. Exactly, Julian said quietly. Equal partnership, equal credit, equal risk and reward. Everything Gabriel never understood how to do because he saw relationships as hierarchies instead of collaborations. Manda's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and went still. Andrew's name, not a text, an actual call. You don't have to answer, Julian said immediately, but something made her swipe to accept curiosity, closure, the need to hear what desperation sounded like months after the dust had settled. Andrew. Manda. His voice was rough, worn down, stripped of the entitled confidence she remembered. I saw the photos from your launch. You look happy, genuinely happy. I am happy. I'm glad. You deserve that. A pause filled with everything he'd never said when it mattered. I'm calling to apologize, really apologize. Not the corporate statement my father's lawyers wrote, not the public relations garbage. Real words from me to you. I'm listening. I was a coward. I let my father destroy you because standing up to him was harder than watching you suffer. I stole credit for your work because I was terrified everyone would realize I wasn't competent enough to compete with you. And I betrayed you with Sophia because her family connections could give my father something you couldn't. More power, more status, more of what he valued. I destroyed the best thing I ever had because I was too weak and insecure to appreciate it. Manda was quiet, letting him finish. You don't have to forgive me, Andrew continued. I don't deserve forgiveness. I'm not asking for that. I just needed you to know that I understand what I did, that I've spent months in therapy unpacking how I became someone who could do that to another person. And I'm genuinely sorry for all of it, for every moment I made you feel less than you were. Thank you for saying that. Are you happy with Julian? Really happy? Yes, completely. Good, that's good. His voice cracked slightly. I hope he understands how fortunate he is. I didn't figure that out until it was far too late. Andrew, I need to let you go now. I just wanted you to know I understand, that I see what I destroyed. Take care of yourself, Manda. Build that empire. Show everyone what they missed by underestimating you. He hung up. Julian waited quietly for her to process whatever she was feeling. He apologized, Manda said finally. Actually apologized. It sounded genuine. How do you feel about that? Nothing. I thought I'd feel something. Anger, vindication, maybe even sympathy. But I just feel nothing. That chapter is completely closed. He's not my problem anymore. He's not even interesting to me anymore. That's growth. Or indifference. Both, Julian said. Same destination, different routes. They stood together looking at the city lights, at the empire they were building, at the future that belonged entirely to them. Julian pulled her close. Ready to go home? Your place or mine? Ours, Julian said. I had the property deed transferred to joint ownership last week. Equal partners in business means equal partners in everything. Seemed appropriate. Manda stopped moving. You put your house in both our names? Our house, Because partnership means actual partnership, not just convenient words. Because you deserve to own your space, not rent it from someone who could take it away. She kissed him then, deep and grateful and full of everything she'd never had with Andrew: respect, equality, genuine partnership that went beyond words into actual structure and action. When they pulled apart, Julian was smiling. What was that for? For seeing me, not what I could do for you, not what name I carried, not what I was worth on a balance sheet. Just me, the actual person. That's the only version worth knowing. They left the event space hand in hand, two people who'd found partnership when they'd both stopped looking for validation from people who couldn't provide it. Behind them, somewhere in the darkness, Gabriel Silva was watching his empire sold for parts, while the woman he'd destroyed built something better from the ashes of his destruction. And ahead of them, the future stretched bright and unwritten, full of possibility that belonged to no one but themselves. Cross Boland International was just the beginning. They were about to change everything. Chapter 9. The Validation. 2 years after the boardroom execution that had become business school case studies, Manda stood on a stage at the Global Trade Summit and told her story to 3,000 people who'd come specifically to hear her speak. They fired me in front of 52 executives, thinking public humiliation would break me. Instead, it freed me from pretending I needed them. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing that could happen. You just can't see it yet because the pain is too immediate. The audience erupted in applause that felt like vindication for every woman who'd ever been erased by powerful men. This was what she'd become. Not just a successful CEO, but a symbol of what happens when you refuse to stay silent about systematic theft. Cross Boland International now operated in 18 countries with revenue exceeding $2 billion annually. But more importantly, the company culture reflected everything Manda had learned. Everyone got credit for their work, leadership went to talent, not connections, and women held half the executive positions. After her keynote, she was approached by a reporter doing a profile. "What would you say to Gabriel Silva if you saw him today?" "Nothing," Manda answered honestly. "He's no longer relevant to my story. He's a cautionary tale I sometimes reference, but he's not a character in my present or future." "And your ex-husband?" "Same answer. I spent 3 years being defined by my relationship to powerful men, being Mrs. Silva, being Andrew's wife. I'm done with that completely. I'm Manda Boland, CEO and co-founder. Someone who built 2 empires and learned the second one was the only one that mattered because it couldn't be stolen." The profile ran the following week with a powerful split image. Young Manda at Silva events, barely visible beside Andrew. Current Manda on the Cross Boland stage, commanding attention, impossible to ignore. The visual said everything words couldn't capture. Silva International had been sold to an Asian conglomerate months earlier. Gabriel had retired in disgrace. Andrew had taken a mid-level position at a small consulting firm where nobody cared about his last name. The 7 executives who'd stood up that day all held senior positions at Cross Boland. Robert was Chief Operating Officer. Lisa ran global strategy. The others led divisions they'd built from vision into reality. And Julian proposed in the most perfectly them way possible. They'd just closed a deal worth $300 million, the largest single contract in company history. The entire team was celebrating in the boardroom. Julian stood, walked to where Manda sat, and knelt beside her chair in front of everyone. "Manda Boland, you're my best friend, my equal partner in everything that matters, the most brilliant person I've ever met. Will you marry me? Not to merge our lives like a corporate acquisition, but to celebrate that our lives already merged so naturally we barely noticed." The ring wasn't huge or flashy. It was elegant, meaningful, chosen because he actually knew her taste. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Absolutely, yes." The team erupted in celebration. Catherine showed up minutes later with a pre-drafted prenup that protected both of them equally. 1 week later, a package arrived at Crossbowland headquarters' massive flower arrangement. Expensive, professionally arranged. The card read, "You won. Congratulations on your engagement. GS." Manda stared at it for a long moment, feeling absolutely nothing. No triumph, no anger, not even satisfaction, just complete indifference. She handed it to her assistant. "Donate these to the children's hospital. Send them with a card saying they're from an anonymous donor who learned too late that power without integrity is just temporary noise." But she kept Gabriel's card, had it framed, hung it in her private office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of evolution. She'd spent 3 years trying to earn approval from people who would never give it, spent months destroying them in justified revenge. And now, finally, she'd reached the place where their opinions simply didn't register. That evening she found Julian in his home office reviewing investment opportunities. "Gabriel sent flowers for the engagement," she said. "I heard. What did you do with them?" "Sent them away, but I kept the card." "Why?" "Because it proves something I needed to learn, that indifference is the ultimate power. Gabriel wanted me broken, then he wanted me angry. Now he wants acknowledgement that he destroyed me, but I'm just indifferent. He's a footnote, not even the antagonist, just a catalyst." Julian set down his work, pulled her into his arms. "I love you, not because you're successful or powerful. I love you because you credit people for their work, because you build things that make the world better, because you treat people as humans instead of assets. Even our empire." "Especially our empire," Julian said, "because ours was built on respect and partnership instead of theft. Ours will last because it's built on truth." They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of other people's failures. Outside, the world kept turning. Companies rose and fell, empires built and crumbled. But inside that office, Manda Boland had everything she'd never known to want. Partnership that felt like home, success that couldn't be stolen, and the quiet certainty that she'd never again confuse her worth with someone else's opinion of her value. Gabriel's flowers were already wilting in some hospital room, but Manda's empire would stand for decades, built on integrity instead of theft. And that made all the difference. Chapter 10. The Reckoning. 5 years after Gabriel Silva destroyed her in that boardroom, Manda walked off a stage after delivering the keynote address at the International Business Summit to a standing ovation from 2,000 people. Her speech had become legendary, raw, unflinching, refusing to sanitize the pain of betrayal. Even as she celebrated the triumph that followed, women lined up afterward, sharing their own stories of being erased, thanking her for giving them permission to fight back. She slipped backstage, exhausted from the emotional labor of reliving those moments publicly. Julian waited in the green room with water and the kind of quiet understanding that came from truly knowing someone. "You were exceptional," he said simply. Before she could respond, her assistant appeared in the doorway, looking uncertain. "Ms. Boland, someone's here requesting to see you. He says it's important. Andrew Silva." Julian's expression hardened immediately. "Want me to have security remove him?" Manda considered it. 5 years of silence, no contact since that phone call after her launch party. What could he possibly want now? "No, I'll see him. Alone." "You're sure?" "I'm sure this is long overdue." Andrew waited in a quiet hallway away from the crowds and cameras. He looked completely different. Thinner, older, wearing clothes that were decent but not designer. His face carried lines that spoke of consequences finally catching up. "Manda, thank you for seeing me. You have 3 minutes. Use them wisely. I've been sober for 4 years. Therapy twice a week for 3. I work at a non-profit now, helping small companies develop international strategies. It's honest work, Meaningful work, nothing prestigious, nothing that makes headlines. Just helping people who actually need help instead of stealing credit from people doing the actual work. Manda stayed completely still, face neutral. I'm here because my therapist says I need to make amends, not for my benefit, but for yours. So you know that I fully understand what I destroyed and why it was unforgivable. I don't need your amends, Andrew. I know, but I need to say them anyway. He took a breath. I watched my father turn every relationship into a transaction, watched him use people and discard them when they were no longer useful, and instead of breaking that cycle, I became him. I married you because you made me look competent. I stole your work because I was terrified of being exposed as mediocre. I let my father destroy you publicly because challenging him meant risking my inheritance and position. Is there a point to this confessional? The point is that you were never the problem, you were exceptional, and that terrified us. We tried to break you down to manageable size. When that didn't work, we tried to erase you completely, and when that backfired catastrophically, we blamed you for our own failures and inadequacy. Manda studied him with the detachment of examining something that used to matter but had become irrelevant. This wasn't the Andrew she'd married. That man had been polished, confident, empty of self-awareness. This version seemed broken in ways that might have led to growth, but she didn't care. You've had therapy, that's commendable. You're working at a non-profit, good for you. You understand what you did, fantastic, but none of that changes anything or matters to me at all. Andrew blinked, clearly expecting something different. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Good. Because you're not getting it. You're not getting closure. You're not getting the satisfaction of me telling you I understand why you did it or that I appreciate your growth. You destroyed 3 years of my life. You stood beside your father while he publicly humiliated me. You stole credit for work I did while you were playing golf and pretending to be competent. And now you want what? A gold star for finally understanding basic human decency? I just wanted you to know. I don't care what you wanted me to know, Manda said, and her voice could have frozen fire. Your emotional journey through therapy is irrelevant to me. Your sobriety is nice for you, but meaningless to me. Your non-profit work doesn't erase what you did. You're here because you need something. Validation, absolution, the comfort of knowing I don't hate you anymore, but I don't give you anything, Andrew. Not my anger, not my forgiveness, not my acknowledgement that you've grown. Nothing. Gabriel died last year, Andrew said, desperation creeping into his voice. Heart attack, alone in that mansion. His last words were about how you stole Silver International from him. Even dying, he couldn't admit the truth. I'm sorry for your loss, Manda said, and didn't mean it at all. Don't be. He was a terrible father and worse person. Andrew looked like he was grasping for connection that didn't exist. I'm not here for sympathy. I'm here because every article about you, every speech you give, every success you have, it proves I had something extraordinary and I was too stupid and cruel to value it. That's your problem, not mine. I know you're married. I've seen the photos. Julian looks at you the way I should have. Stop, Manda interrupted, disgust finally entering her voice. Don't compare yourself to Julian. Don't talk about my marriage. Don't act like your regret matters to my present. You had your chance. You made your choices. You stood there and watched your father destroy me because it was convenient. Now you're here thinking a confession and some tears will make me see you as human, but I don't see you as anything at all, Andrew. You're nothing to me. I understand, he said quietly. No, you don't. You think this is about anger, about me holding a grudge. But it's not. It's complete indifference. You don't factor into my thoughts anymore. You're not the villain in my story. You're not even interesting enough to be a cautionary tale. You're just nothing. Empty space where a decent person should have been. Andrew's face showed the pain of someone finally understanding they were truly irrelevant. I hope therapy helped you process. I didn't need therapy to process what you did, Manda said. I needed therapy to understand why I stayed so long with someone who valued me so little. That's what I had to work through, not your betrayal, but my own complicity in accepting treatment I never deserved. So thank you, I suppose you taught me to never again confuse someone's inability to see my value with actual lack of value. She started to walk away, then paused. Gabriel sent me flowers when Julian and I got engaged, a card saying I won. I threw them away because his acknowledgement was meaningless. Yours is even more meaningless. Goodbye, Andrew. Don't contact me again. She walked away from him completely and felt nothing except relief that this final loose end was tied off and discarded. Julian found her minutes later. How did it go? He apologized, showed growth, wanted acknowledgement. And I gave him nothing. No anger, no forgiveness, no validation that his journey matters, just complete indifference. She realized it was absolutely true. For 5 years, I thought I was carrying something about them, anger, resentment, unfinished business. But I wasn't. They were already irrelevant. I'd just never confirmed it out loud until today. How do you feel? Free, completely free. She showed him her phone, the email that had arrived during her speech. The African infrastructure deal they'd been negotiating had closed $1.3 billion over 10 years. This is what matters, building things that last, working with people who value what we create, living a life that's actually ours. They walked out together, past security, past crowds wanting photos and autographs, past evidence of everything she'd become. In her office, that boardroom photo still hung, 52 executives, 7 standing, Gabriel and Andrew sitting alone in that massive room. The plaque beneath it had been changed. The old version had said, "The day I learned my worth." The new version was simpler, truer. "The day they taught me that some people's inability to see value says everything about them and nothing about what they're looking at." That night, at their home, Cross Boland's leadership team gathered for dinner. The original 7 who'd stood up, plus the dozens of talented people they'd brought into an organization that valued contribution over connections. Robert raised his glass. "To the woman who taught us that the best revenge isn't destroying them, it's building something so extraordinary they become irrelevant to your story." They toasted, celebrated, planned their next decade of growth. And somewhere in the city, Andrew Silver went back to his small life, carrying the knowledge that he'd lost something irreplaceable, and the woman he'd lost it from didn't even think about him anymore. But Manda Boland didn't waste energy on ghosts. She thought about the future, about the empire she and Julian were building together, about the people they employed who would never have to fight for credit on their own work, about the legacy they were creating that would outlast them both. Gabriel had called her nothing in that boardroom 5 years ago. Today she was everything he'd pretended to be. Powerful, respected, successful on her own terms, not because anyone gave her permission, because she'd always been extraordinary. She'd just finally learned to believe it, and no one, not Gabriel, not Andrew, not anyone, could ever take that away again.